Good afternoon. Regular session, Mayor and City Council meeting, 6 p.m. Wednesday, April 6, 2022, City Hall Complex. I call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Clerk, will you please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, number 3 is call to the public. We'll start with Jorge Maldonado. Please state your name and your address for the record, please. And just so you know, everybody that's on call to the public, since we have about 10 or 12 of them, it's going to be 3 minutes per person, or per person who's on call to the public. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Jorge Maldonado, 2880 North Itachi Drive, Nogales, Arizona. As you can see, I'm down in the bottom, and I want to thank the Mayor and Council for giving me the opportunity to speak. It's was a great opportunity to be in the council for the last 5.5 years. I wanted to do this on our last meeting, but unfortunately it was canceled. Now, I would like to take this opportunity, thank Mayor, thank the fellow council members for working with me together and for doing things in the goods and the bads. But let's continue. Let's do the things for the right reasons. The directors, employees, staff, supporters, thank you for all your support and working with me. EBT board and affiliated with the community. I would also thank you for helping me out with the EBT, which was Employees Benefit Health Trust for the insurance, which I was the representative by the council. With this, I want to take the opportunity to thank all the boarders and decisions and community for giving me the opportunity to serve in the council. As you know, I have decided to step down and hopefully come back soon. But I really appreciate everybody for dealing with me, John, Mr. Massey, everybody, you know, Letty. It was a really big pleasure. I loved it, and I think the staff and the employees are great, and I think we got a lot of future for the city. Again, thank you, and I'll be back.
Thank you very much. Next will be Marion Velasco. State your name and your address for the record.
Hi, my name is Marion Velasco, and my address is 1476 North Dorada Court in Nogales, Arizona. I just have a few questions about the street repairs. Most of us, on a daily basis, more than once, we pass by Apache Street, and I want to see if there's a way that maybe you guys are considering fixing that street, because it's very, very, very transitable. And also the other address is by Frontage and Fairway. Also, that area is kind of dangerous, and because lots of traders drive by, and we gotta turn somehow to drive that way by Fairway, and it's kind of bumpy and dangerous. So I was just wanted to let you guys know and ask you if you guys are considering.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Sorry, because we can't answer back on call to the public, but the city manager already took the information down, and that will be related to the Public Works Department.
Thank you so
much.
much.
Thank you very much. Next is Ivan Arballo. Is that right? State your name and your address for the record, Ivan.
My name is Ivan Arballo. I'm from 483 West First Street, Nogales, Arizona. And I'm here to talk about the kids. I'm a local celebrity, so the kids are my followers. And I would like to talk about like their education, because it's a bit low right now. And I would like like some maybe set up some events, something for kids to spend more time with their families. So like the kids could be outside more, so that like they could get. I'm nervous.
That's all right.
So they could like they could get oxygen. Oxygen helps stimulate the brain, helps brain cells grow. So more time outside for kids is good. And that brings attention to roads and sidewalks. If we could fix the roads and sidewalks, there's a few people like they go to the stores and bikes and stuff. There's some people walking in the sidewalks, and the bikes, well, there's no bike lanes in the streets, and or the sidewalks are they need some fixing, some cleaning up, and some the jobs. There's quite a few people that are without jobs, and like I'm not sure why, but they have told me that they need help finding jobs. That there's not enough, I think. And well, I was gonna say about the trucks, about the passage over the Grand Avenue of from Patagonia Highway. The trucks come passing through there, but I saw that you guys are gonna be talking about making another passage to the side. So I would just like to point out the attention to kids' education. We need to work a bit on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ivan. John, did you get some information on that? Yes. Thank you. Next is it Don Landa? Yes, okay. You state your name and your address for the record, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Don Landa, and I reside at 1989 North Burden Place. That's in the Keno Hills section of town.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll try to get this into 3 minutes, but my concern is with the Public Works Department.
Mm-hmm.
I believe they're failing me and my neighbors. I was going downhill back in August, and as I was driving downhill, I found a car in my lane coming up the road. So I had to completely come to a stop and let this car make their turn into an illegal driveway that's in Aurora Drive. It's an absolute hazard. The City Works people know about it, but they're complicit to it. They're allowing traffic to go at least 10 to 15 yards in the opposite direction to make this turn into this illegal driveway, which is just a convenience for the people that are from Wilderness Gate Drive. There's no reason that these driveways should be there. They're a hazard. I've almost had 3 accidents in the past 7 months on that road. But according to the Public Works, the owner of North Wilderness Gate Drive closed the road completely, took it upon himself to close it, and made these illegal driveways that lead up to Aurora that are causing these issues. Mr. Kissinger is my neighbor, so he's very aware of this. But I just need some help to get somebody out there to take a look at this, because this is a potential head-on collision. And as far as I'm concerned, the city is complicit right now because the heads of the department of the city and the engineer know about this, and they're allowing this to happen. That's all I got to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Landa. And Mr. Kissinger, you said you were aware of this? Yeah. Let's look into this, Mr. Mess.
We shall.
That's a safety issue.
Yes.
Next is Francis Glad. State your name and your address for the record, please.
Buenas tardes. My name is Frances Glad, 488 West Walnut Street. I am a resident of Nogales, who just said, and I am the chairwoman of the Santa Cruz County Democratic Party. One of the best parts about being involved with the party is that I get to speak to a lot of people, and all from different walks of life. One of the stories that is becoming more prevalent is the availability and affordability of housing in our community. I want to take this time to say that I am grateful to the Nogales International for bringing our local housing crisis to light. I am here to add a broader, more concerning picture to that story. I have spoken to residents that are living or have lived without water or electricity for months on end. Some are living in unlivable conditions and not by fault of their own. It feels like the story is always the same, where the resident notifies the landlord of conditions and the landlord makes promises that they do not keep, causing harsh financial hardships and unnecessary stress to the families in those homes. And I'm sorry if I become a little, because of, the people I've spoken to. The questions in my mind were, and probably now in yours, why don't they just move out? Why don't they just seek out help to the organizations who are there for that purpose? The answers are never quite that simple. They're never quite that simple. I don't have the money. It takes me months to save. And if I had the money, where would I go? I don't have the money to move. And if there is something to rent, it is never somewhere that I can afford. Those are some of the replies I've gotten. But another answer is not having electricity is costing me more than if I was paying for it. And so they fall behind. See, these are people who are not financially well off. They are afraid of speaking up. They won't tell on their landlords for fear of getting bad references on the next landlord. As well, they feel like they could not go up against someone who has the financial means and the knowledge that they don't in those matters. I'd like to add that I do not believe that all landlords their intentions are not of ill will. Maybe they need help. I feel it is my duty to bring you these stories and ask you to please consider, discuss, and act on what can be done to alleviate the affordable housing problem, because people are hurting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next is Sharon. And Faith.
Sharon Ehrman, 3019 North Calle Coronado, Nogales, Arizona. Good evening, Council, Mayor, City Manager, Deputy City Manager, Ms. Robinson. Last time I was here, Council graciously voted unanimously to support the Mingus Memorial and the event coming up April 23rd. So we're here to express appreciation and gratitude to you. Also, I have some invitations if you would like to participate in the ribbon cutting on April 23rd. And I'd like to introduce you to the artist and project manager of the Mingus Memorial, Faith Posey.
Yes, Faith Posey, 370 Anza Drive in Nogales. And we would like to present the city of Nogales with the original drawing that is represented on the Mingus Memorial. And as advocates for the arts, we would like to advocate that the drawing be displayed somewhere in a city building. And with the beautiful architectural building next door, that perhaps a space, maybe it's a lobby, maybe it's a special room, where works by Nogales artists and works of different people, aspects, buildings, whatever, of Nogales be displayed as a permanent collection. So we have, for the city and the public, the original drawing. And we will put it here so everyone else can take a look at it. And we would like to extend, of course, you have special invitations, but we want to extend an invitation to everyone present to attend the dedication of the memorial and the music festival on Saturday, April 23rd. And the dedication starts at 10 and the music at 11. And we have a great roster. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Luis Hernandez. State your name and your address.
Good afternoon. My name is Luis Hernandez, 844 West Street Place. I'm going to say in Spanish. My dad is going to translate it in English.
No, you do it.
Well, let me tell it in Spanish. I feel better. El propósito de nosotros es agradeciéndole al señor Kissinger y a Mr. Díaz la oportunidad que nos han dado de venir a proponerles una inquietud que hemos tenido desde hace el sábado pasado. Precisamente estamos viendo las noticias y nos dolió mucho, sobre todo a mi hija y a mi familia. Nos partió el corazón, como quien dice luego, la situación de Ucrania. Es un sentimiento en la que tenemos que tener empatía, al menos personalmente mi familia y nosotros, con el país de Ucrania por la situación que está pasando. Hemos estado viendo las noticias y nos dimos cuenta que el sentimiento de nuestros hijos, a veces nosotros se los pasamos a través de las noticias, lo que se dice en las noticias, y hemos decidido venir a petición de mi hija y a invitarlos a todos ustedes a que nos acompañen este 15 de abril a las 4 de la tarde, de 4 a 6 de la tarde, para que vamos a ondear las banderas de Ucrania y las banderas de Estados Unidos en apoyo a los ucranianos. De alguna manera, es una forma de apoyar, pero también queremos conducir a esas personas que vienen hacia nosotros a decirles cómo pueden apoyar a través de la Cruz Roja, a través de otras asociaciones que pueden ayudar a ese país. Es muy fácil para nosotros, como no tenemos el dolor que ellos tienen, pues se nos hace fácil no interesarnos en el dolor de ellos. Ojalá y nos acompañen, están invitados todos ustedes personalmente, y mi hija Ángela María nos quiere decir algunas palabras para terminar con. You want to say hi?
Yeah, good.
Que digas algo. You want to say something?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Ángela María. I need to happy for Arizona about all the people, about what happened to pray for everybody else. I need to know what happened. Don't have any money to buy something. We need to know what happened, but we need the money to buy something, and my mom has no money. It's really important to buy for Arizona what happened for all the people. I need to know what happened for everything. Don't have any house, don't have any food, but we need to pay what happened to buy something for Arizona. To say everybody else that want to buy something or you want to buy something, everybody stay by herself and outside, sleep by herself outside. Thank you.
Thank you.
say something?
No. She said my mom has no money.
No, you don't have money to buy something with the accident.
Oh, okay.
Mijita, your father has a lot of money. He just retired from Safeway.
Yeah, he does.
Okay, so
I know that. Our next speaker is Jacob Astorga. State your name and your address, please, for the record.
Jacob Astorga, 454 Sequita Court, Rio Rico, Arizona, 85648. Good afternoon, Mayor Arturo Garino, City Manager, and members of the City of Nogales Council. My name is Jacob Astorga, and I am here to ask all of you for your support in allowing us to be able to have a softball league for your citizens. Mr. Mayor, as you are aware, there is a great need to have activities for adults, youth adults in our community, and I strongly believe this is a great one for all of us. We proceeded to follow the guidelines that were given to us at the Park and Recreation Department, which, by the way, they were very helpful. We completed the forms and provided the required paperwork. We later found out that our request had been denied because we had not contacted other personnel within the city of Nogales, which we had no knowledge of and were not informed at the time. We are here just asking if you would reconsider our request and support us all on it, even if we need to restart the process. This softball league will boost morale and encourage our local players to come out and participate in these games. We are willing to make the necessary adjustments if necessary if there are any other leagues playing on fixed days using the fields. We are also asking to see if it's possible for having 3 days per week, which would consist 2 days for the men's team and 1 day for co-eds. At the moment, there are about 12 teams for men's and 6 teams for co-ed, which there are also teams coming from Sahuarita to participate in the league. At this, all that we are asking that we are given permission to move forward and make whatever adjustments, rescheduling, and necessary, making this a successful event, and hoping this will be a year-round or annual league to all of us. I thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, the City Council, for all of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Master.
We'll look into this, Mayor.
Yes. Just so your information, when I was in the fire department, we had a softball this team, and we always played at Fletcher Park. We had 3-4 days. Some more practice, some more play. So I think we need to be able to make that happen. Thank you very much. Okay, is there anybody else that go to the public? Let me see. And I do have one more. Richard Carlos? Yes. Yes, please. State your name and your address for the record.
Okay, my name is Richard Carlos, and I'm at 24 East Washington Street. Thank you. I have a business that's registered with the state of Arizona. It's called Simply from the Desert, and it started around 2005. And I want to offer this to the city because I think it would be a good industry for the young and the old and in between, and it's working with bamboo, the natural materials from the Sonoran Desert, which in itself it makes it unique. I have mailed some of the chorizo to places way far away, like Siberia and things, and it's appreciated. Just to give an idea that the world, in a sense, appreciates the Great Sonoran Desert. All right. So I'm looking to be able to have a space for people to work, and of course under supervision, and to grow the business more, and to give it to the city of Nogales. It's my way to say thank you for everything that you all have been doing here. And my apologies for not the proper introduction. This is my first time here, and it's a good one. I'm glad that I'm here. On April 23rd, I'm extending an invitation to everyone here to come to 24 East Washington Street Studio and Gallery. There will be food and music, hopefully, from 11 to 7 in the morning. And I extend my invitation because I know we're bumping up with dates, right? And I have to say that April 23rd to me is a special day because it reminds me of someone that I used to admire quite a bit. So it's Saturday, April 23rd. When you have to set a date, you got to come up with something. So that's what it was. And I do appreciate your time and energy towards everything. And I hope that everyone can come if you'd like. All right. And that's part one. Part two, there's another industry that I think would be very good for returning vets. And I'll get into that the next time. I really would like to, I have photos and I would like to share that with everyone, okay, here? And thank you very much for your time. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Kissinger, did you get all the information from Mrs. Glad, Francis, in reference to the housing issue and the utilities? Okay. So yeah, because I was thinking about that because we can ask Mr. Thompson to see if he can help out. All right. Yes, they're right there. Is there any? I don't have any more sheets, but is there anybody that wants to say anything and call to the public? No? Okay. We'll go with proclamations. The proclamation number 1, Child Abuse Prevention Month. Mr. Bonilla, is that the you read?
Yes,
that, please?
that's the one I have.
Thank you.
Ready?
Yes, sir.
Whereas all children deserve to grow up in a safe and nourishing environment to ensure they reach their full potential, and whereas safe and healthy childhoods help produce confident and successful adults, and whereas child abuse and neglect often occur when people find themselves in stressful situations without community resources and not knowing how to cope, and whereas child abuse and neglect can be reduced by making sure every family has the support they need to raise their children in a healthy environment. And whereas no one can do everything, but everyone can do something, and together we can create change for the better. And whereas wearing or displaying a pinwheel in April will serve as a positive reminder that together we can prevent child abuse and keep children safe. Now, therefore, I, Arturo Garino, Mayor of the City of Nogales, Arizona, hereby proclaim April 2022 as Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Thank you very much, Council. Number 2 is also a proclamation. It's Autism Awareness Month, and it'll be read by Councilman Diaz. Councilman?
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas autism is a lifelong neurological disorder with current statistic bringing it to 1 in 110 children being diagnosed in the autistic spectrum, and whereas autism prevalence rate now replaces it as the third most common developmental disability in the country today. And autism can result in difficulties in communication, socialization, sensory perception, and behavior. And whereas these difficulties range from mild to severe, no racial, ethnic, or social boundaries, and affect many young and old alike in the city of Nogales. And whereas the majority of the public, including many professionals in the medical, educational, and vocational field, are still unaware of how autism affects people and how to effectively work with individuals with autism. And whereas our understanding of autism has grown tremendously since it was first diagnosed in 1943, but there's still much to learn. And whereas hope lies in a broad spectrum of treatments and in an informed public and community committed to providing support and service to those with syndromes of this special disability. And whereas this board supports all public and private efforts aimed at habilitation, treatment, or cure of autism. And now, therefore, I, Arturo Argarino, Mayor of the City of Nogales, do hereby proclaim April 2022 as Autism Awareness Month.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman. Okay, we move to orders. A, consideration possible action of order 2022-04-019, an order of the Council of the City of Nogales, Arizona, appointing Edward Dickey as city manager and approving an employment service agreement. Mr. Matt, thank you. Thank you very much. Discussion, Mr. Massey?
Yes, sir. Mayor and council members, you are no doubt aware that Mr. Dickey is in the audience tonight, and he's looking forward to serving the citizens of the people of Nogales as the next city manager. You have the contract before you, which is essentially the same contract that we've been using as our employment service agreements. You see the terms that he has negotiated with our outside attorney, and it's within the range that has been published as part of the selection process. And so I present you your next city manager.
Yeah. And you're comfortable with that contract?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I just want to hear those words from you, Mr.
Yes, sir.
All right. Is there any discussion? Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Massey, I have a couple of questions. The first question is, I received an email from Mr. Dickey, and I would like to get some clarification on regarding Section 4G of the employment agreement. If my memory serves me right, I know in the past there's been some issues where we have a city manager serving Nogales, and there was some questions about him spending enough time here at the city working and or living here in Nogales. And so I want to clarify the email that he sent regarding the time administrative leave that he wants to take. If I understood the content of the email, basically he's requesting 2 days in 1 month of personal leave. Please correct me and if I'm right or wrong, and clarify what that says.
Sure. This is a alternate type work schedule. You know, as a salaried employee, all of that would include me, Mr. Kissinger, there are other salaried employees. We don't punch in, we don't punch a clock. And so this is something that has been requested by Mr. Dickey of an alternate schedule. For example, when I worked at Maricopa County, we had something called 8-9s, where you work 9-hour days for 8 days. And then you had one Friday or Monday at an 8-hour day and the other Friday or Monday off. So it would be similar to that, like an alternate work schedule. And so as you can see how it's drafted, since it's not a salary, we're not asking Mr. Dickey to punch in and say, okay, work 9-hour days every day that you're, that you are here in town. But it is something that I think is consistent with common industry practice. And it is something also that's consistent with our HR manual. Mayor, the HR manual does say that with the city manager permission, a salaried employee could take up to 1 day every pay period, 1 day every 2 weeks, as an 8-hour administrative day. And so that's something, though, that the salaried employee needs to make sure that they're meeting their goals, they're meeting their productivity as necessary. And so we're putting that in this contract, and it's similar to the council providing the city manager that same opportunity to take one administrative day per pay period. So it'd be every other weekend, as I understand it. I think, as Mr. Dickey mentioned in his interview process, he has family in Utah, so he would be taking every other weekend as a 3-day weekend to visit his family in Utah. But he has made it clear that he would be available by phone, and a lot of things can be done, by phone as necessary.
And I have a follow-up question. The reason I am asking is I want the public to be aware of that this is in his contract.
Yes.
So in essence, for example, in 1 month, you could basically say, like he stated in his email here, he could basically take the Friday off and a Monday off. So he has the 4-day weekend because, he's got the Friday off, then Saturday, Sunday, and of course he has the Monday off. So in essence, it could work that way, I'm sure, right? Like you say, making it a little easier for him maybe to travel back and forth. And I have a follow-up question too. In the contract, it does say that he has to be a resident of Nogales, right?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Discussion? All right, hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Welcome, Mr.
Thank you, council. And I did put it off on a town hall here in Nogales.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, B.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Welcome aboard.
Did you want to say something on the podium, Mr. No? You're fine? Okay. Yes, I know. You will. You will. All right. Okay, B, consideration possible action of order 2022-04-020, an order of the Council of Nogales, Arizona, approving a payment of back wages to certain fire department employees.
So moved.
Discussion. Mr. Massey?
Yes, Mayor and members of council present tonight who will explain this order more thoroughly is the outside HR consultant that we've been working with closely on the issue of the FLSA situation in the fire department. Her name is Brenda Tranquina, and I'd like to invite her up to the podium. And I think she has a slide that has a PowerPoint slide that have been passed out to you.
Yes.
And also that has been passed out to you are the 2 attachments to the proposed order. The attachments didn't make it into the agenda packet, but one of them is a summary of unpaid wages. And it's called a Form WH56, which is one of the forms that the DOL uses in a case like this. And the other form is a receipt and release to be signed by the relevant employee. And so with that, I'd like to ask Ms. Tranquina to brief the council on the proposed order and what we should be approving then tonight. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. As you're aware, I've been before you before. As we were working through the process, we had identified some potential concerns with payroll practices in the fire department. So what I'm here to do tonight is to try to give you just a very brief overview of what the findings are. We have completed our audit. So if we can just go through The audit process, basically, as you're aware, the city self-reported improper pay practices to the Department of Labor. And we did that back in the summer. And the Department of Labor Wage and Hour Division, after talking with us, approved what they call a supervised self-audit. Whereby what that basically means is the employer, and in this case me working with you all as the employer, does the bulk of the work, and the Department of Labor supervises it in coming forward with a self-audit, as opposed to the Department of Labor coming to the city and saying, we found problems, let us in the door and we're going to start looking at those problems. What they do when we come forward in a case like this is they agree to waive any penalties and fines. Which certainly is an advantage to you as the city, to the employer. It was agreed that we would go to a 2-year look back when there are findings of improper pay practices and the potential for back wages being owed. The Department of Labor can mandate either a 2-year or a 3-year look back. Typically, it's a 2-year unless it's determined to have been willing and done willingly and with knowledge of the errors, which wasn't the case here. So they agreed to the two-year look back. So the Department of Labor Wage and Hour Division investigator reviewed the pay practices in detail with me and confirmed that there were findings of violations of the Fair Labor Standards Act in the methodologies that were being used for payroll. So what did we do? And again, this is just a quick overview for you. As the consultant, I utilized the Nogales Fire payroll records and time records to prepare the audit itself. We went back over 52 pay periods, okay, so 52, which is 2 years, obviously, from August 26th of 19 through August 22nd of 21. Any employee in the fire department who was affected during that time frame, their payroll records were reviewed, even if they no longer are employed. If they were employed for 2 months or if they were employed the entire 2 years, it doesn't matter. Those records were reviewed as well. So we looked back. We started with the actual timesheets, the physical timesheets, recorded actual hours worked for the entire time periods, each individual pay period, and then we looked at the actual payroll records, the pay stubs. All along the way, the Department of Labor Wage and Hour Division was reviewing the calculations, reviewing the entries, and looking for compliance and accuracy. Okay. What were some of the violations? Just to recap those. Failure to designate a work period for 207K exemptions. The 207K exemption in the Fair Labor Standards Act is a particular exemption for overtime for public safety personnel, law enforcement, and fire protection personnel. So the fire department employees are considered under the FLSA, the fire department employees that are sworn, that are actually suppression employees, not administrative employees. Those folks are considered covered under this 207K exemption. And under the 207K exemption, the employer can designate a work period anywhere from 7 to 28 days. And that work period, depending upon the duration, determines what the threshold is for overtime. In the rest of the world, where most of you are, I'm sure, familiar, overtime is required under the law to be paid after 40 hours in a 7-day period or in a 1-week period. Under the 207K, the employer can say, we want our work period to be 7 days, 28 days, 21 days, 26 days, doesn't matter. They can designate that, but the department or the agency has to declare and designate that work period and then follow the required overtime threshold. In this case, the city never really designated a work period. That was one of the first questions I asked. What's the work period? What's the 7K work period? Nobody knew. So that was not ever really defined. So you were using 14-day pay periods, but that was not necessarily defined as the actual work period. So that was one of the violations. One of the other key violations was the failure to correctly calculate the regular rate. We know that, I think most people know that if an employee is entitled to overtime, you get 1.5 times, right? 1.5 or time and a half, as we call it. But most people think that time and a half means time and a half your base hourly rate. So if your base hourly rate is $20 an hour, if you're working overtime, you're going to get $30 an hour. But that's not actually the case. Under the law, it requires that you get 1.5 times or time and a half your regular rate of pay. And regular rate has some statutory inclusions beyond just your base hourly rate. And certain remunerations have to be included when we calculate that regular rate to determine what we pay, what the rate would be for overtime. That has not been done in the past. That was not being done. So that was a significant violation. Things that should have been included in determining that regular rate that were not were things like your certification stipends. Folks in the fire department get stipends, additional monies for being certified as a hazmat tech or a swiftwater rescue tech, if they're certified as a paramedic, if they have ALS. So there are several different certification stipends. And the employees were receiving a separate check, separate from their regular paycheck from that. And those monies were not being included, those earnings were not being included in the calculation of their regular rate for determining what they should be owed when they're owed overtime. Also, there are certain types of allowances that can be excluded from the regular rate, payments that they may receive if they are considered reasonable. Well, in the case of the fire department employees, they were receiving two different allowances. They were receiving a uniform allowance and they were receiving a housekeeping allowance. The uniform allowance that was being received was quite substantial, the largest that I know of any fire department in the state of Arizona. Matter of fact, like double what any other fire department that I'm aware of in the state of Arizona, double and more. I mean, there's many departments that were a third or even less. So that one was certainly questionable. And what they say is if the amount being given is greater than what would be considered reasonable reimbursement, okay, then the amount beyond that could have to be included in that regular rate. For purposes of this audit, because we came forward, the city came forward and voluntarily acknowledged we have some improper pay practices, and because a detailed study has not been done in terms of what actual people have actually spent on their uniforms, the Department of Labor set that aside for purposes of this audit, didn't include that, but advised that that needs to be addressed. And if there's going to be, if there were going to be a continuance of that, then it would have to be justified by showing that employees were in fact spending $1,800 a year on uniforms, which we don't feel is probably very likely. That problem, I mean, we have addressed that, the city has addressed that in changing their pay practices. The allowance for their housekeeping is minimal and deemed de minimis, so not something that we have to worry about. Okay, so the regular rate calculation was a significant violation. The other piece was the department has been using what's called an equalized pay system. And some fire departments do this to try to minimize the fluctuation in the biweekly paychecks because of the varying work hours that firefighters work. They don't work a typical 40-hour week that's the same every single week or every single pay period. So some departments will set up an equalized pay system where they provide the employees with a set number of straight time hours and a set number of overtime hours every pay period. And the intention is we're prepaying overtime. So you might get paid overtime before you've actually earned it. And that's all well and good if the city owes, but if the city is prepaying and perhaps the employee may be owing the city, like you've prepaid them 10 hours of overtime in a given pay period, but they haven't even worked that overtime yet. Well, then the next pay period, they'll work it. What that doesn't allow for, though, is for at any time for the employee to be owed. And so there are instances in the system that as it was set up where the employee was not paid for as many hours of overtime in a given pay period as they actually worked. And the Department of Labor, the Fair Labor Standards Act does not allow for that. So that was a significant violation as far as the equalized pay system. Also, the system as it was set up, because of just the standard, they received 102 hours of straight time, 10 hours of overtime every single pay period, but there was no tracking of that. There was no balancing of that. So if somebody left the employ of the city, the city had no way of knowing, do they owe us? Do we owe them? Because it wasn't being tracked. And so that is, in the eyes of the Department of Labor, that is a significant violation. And what they say sometimes is we see this standard amount being paid. We don't know if the overtime's been worked, been earned, not, and they view it as a salary, which they could potentially come back and say there's not been any overtime paid. So that is not allowable under the Fair Labor Standards Act. Okay, so what we had to do is look at this system and go back each individual pay period and identify any pay period in which the employees worked any overtime, okay, and based on the appropriate threshold. Okay, so there were times where some employees worked more hours of overtime than they were actually compensated for in that given pay period. Now, I think when the city adopted this, it was intended to be fair. It wasn't intentional that people be underpaid or anything like that. But the thought was, well, last pay period or next pay period, we're going to give you more overtime than you actually earn, so it all balances out. But that's not allowable under the Fair Labor Standards Act. You cannot ever owe the employee the actual overtime. Okay, so what did we do in the audit? Just a quick overview of the process. Because the department had not designated any kind of work period under the 7K, we had to identify what work period are we going to use so we can determine the overtime threshold, so we can determine how much the employees should have been paid. Basically, the Department of Labor suggested that we use a 14-day work period because that aligns with the pay periods that were being followed. And so, I mean, there's a 21-day, you could have done a 28-day. That the 14-day actually is more advantageous to the employee in terms of the overtime. The longer the work period, the more opportunity the city would have to have savings in terms of the overtime. The 14-day is more advantageous to the employee, and that is what the city has moved to with the employees now with the change in the process. So we used a 14-day work period. We pulled all the actual timesheets. I shouldn't say we, Myra from the fire department had to go back and pull all of the actual physical time records for the past 2 years for every employee. And then we pulled the biweekly pay stubs, and I think that was 700 and some odd pages of printouts, all of the pay stubs for all of the employees to, look at what they were actually paid. We had to retract and break out all of the necessary payroll data from those payroll records. Any pay period in which the 14-day pay period, any pay period in which the employee worked less than 106 hours, they were not crossing that overtime threshold. So in the eyes of the Department of Labor, under the Fair Labor Standard Act, there was no overtime owed. So any pay period for a given individual in which they worked less than 106 hours, there's no overtime owed, so the Department of Labor says, okay, that pay period for that individual is of no concern to us because they didn't work overtime. So, how you paid them some overtime because you chose to pay them some overtime, that's fine. But under the law, they were not owed overtime. Okay, so those particular pay periods then were eliminated from the actual, the audit calculations. We had to go then and calculate the actual regular rate, as we discussed, for each individual work period, and include the proper remunerations that have to be included under the statute for determining that regular rate of pay. So we had to include those certification stipends. So if they got $1,800 a year, we had to break that for being a hazmat tech. We had to break that down by individual pay period, by the 26 pay periods in a year, and allocate those monies to that given pay period. We also had to do that if any individual had incurred any acting pay, where perhaps they were a firefighter acting as an engineer acting as a captain for periods of time. Those additional monies that they got had to be included in that regular rate calculation. Same with wildland pay. If they had gone out on wildland assignments in the past, typically whenever they got back, they submitted all their wildland records, time records, and got paid lump sum for those wildland hours. Well, for correctly calculating those regular rates for each given work period, we had to allocate back the wildland hours to the specific pay period in which those hours were actually worked. The other part was the firefighters receive a night shift differential. From 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., they received an additional 50 cents an hour. We had to include that payment in the calculation of the regular rate. Okay? So we had to add in all of those, and we had to look at each individual pay period, each individual 14-day pay period, and look at their total earnings and determine what their actual regular rate would calculate to be. And their regular rate is based on all the things that they get paid for that fall into the statutory requirement, divided by the total hours that they actually worked on that given pay period. And then we determined the amount of overtime that was owed. So we looked at the total number of hours that they worked minus 106, because that's the threshold. So if they worked 120 hours, We'd subtract out the 106 that are only required for straight time, and we would have, okay, they're owed 14 hours of the overtime premium on top of what they've already gotten paid. So we would take those 14 hours times their regular rate times that 0.5 or 1/2 so that they were properly paid. And then we determined if there was back pay owed for any given individual for any given 14-day period. And we looked at the overtime that was owed based on the calculation minus whatever overtime they were already paid. Because the city paid them overtime in some instances. They paid them the 10 hours of overtime, but in some instances they also paid overtime for some things that they weren't, that under the law you're not required to pay overtime for. So that overtime paid was subtracted from the overtime owed, and it determined then what the back pay was for that given period for that employee. So we did that for every employee for all 52 pay periods in the covered period. It was a large spreadsheet. Let's leave it at that. In the end, bottom line, the total back wages that it's determined that the city owes to the employees in total $28,701. Okay, individuals will be getting varying amounts, anywhere from $188.96 to somebody who's getting $2,237.51. We have some people that work a lot of additional hours, and if that's the case, then they're the folks that are going to be getting the larger checks. Okay. On top of the $28,701 that the city will be required to, or that the city would pay, assuming you approve the payment, the retirement contributions will also have to be made. Okay, because when a firefighter earns wages, they're entitled to their retirement contributions as well. We have broken that down by individual pay period. We'll report that to the Arizona Public Safety Personnel Retirement System so that it is allocated to the appropriate year. So we don't just say, okay, this year, somebody's getting $1,000 in back wages, so that gets added to their 2022 earnings. No, those are not earnings for 2022. It might be that 500 of them are for 2019 and 400 for 2020 and 100 for 2021, whatever the breakout is. It's important for purposes of proper calculation of their retirement. So we will report that to the PSPRS, and they will appropriately allocate it to the specific year. Because that then, depending on the amounts, will boost the individual's earnings for that particular year, which then can affect, especially if they're looking at those being their highest earnings years, then they would, their earnings would bump up for that particular year. Okay. If the council approves the order of payment, the finance department is prepared to issue checks on April 15th, which is the end of next week. That's the plan. Okay. So that's a very quick overview of a very long process.
Very quick. That was quick.
So does anybody have any questions? Sure.
On this back pay, I know you said it comes back from a couple of years. Are these employees going to be taxed and taxed and other deductions deducted from
any legally required deductions will be made out of those. So they, like on their PSPRS contribution, the city will have to make the contribution on their behalf, but the deduction for what they pay, what their percentage is, will be deducted as well for PSPRS as well. Yes. And then, yes, their wages, so they are subject to tax withholdings as well.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Anybody else?
Yeah, one question. Will this affect their, how can I say it, their taxes from the past that they've, done already?
No, because they will not impact them. We double check that with the CPAs to make sure. Because they didn't actually receive the monies in that year, it will not. They will have gotten the check in hand for 2022. They will have to include that in, when they're doing their taxes at the end of the 2022 year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Let's see, where's my IT personnel? Oh, there we go.
C, consideration possible action of order 2022-04-021, an order of the council of the city of Nogales, Arizona, adopting the post-employment benefits trust agreement and approving related documents to establish a Section 115 trust for the benefits of the city's public safety employees and retirees.
So moved, Mayor.
Is there a second? Discussion.
And Mayor, if we could also have, I'm sorry to interrupt, perhaps a motion on D as well, so that for discussion purposes, we can take C and D together.
C and D, okay.
And we have Luke Schneider from PFM Asset Management and his associate, Annette.
Okay,
They're here, and
let
they have.
me read D.
Okay.
And then, okay, consideration possible action of order 2022-04-022, an order of the council of the city of Nogales approving an investment policy statement for the city's section 115 pension trust.
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
And we have handouts, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Pass down the handouts.
Okay.
Good evening.
Oh, yes, yes, and Michael Vasquez. We're familiar with Michael Vasquez.
Good evening.
And he can introduce Luke. So
Michael
we all
is
know Mike.
regular.
We're all familiar. Yeah, with Michael. He's been down here quite a bit on the issue of the pension bonds, and that was successfully done. So thank you, Michael, for taking that to market. And we got in just under the invasion, right?
Yes.
So
one day,
with the invasion of Ukraine, things in the market have changed. So it was pretty good timing, and now he's going to help us introduce the gentleman from PFM Asset Management. And Michael, can you explain what a 115 trust is first, and then explain what PFM Asset Management is? Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to allow PFM to talk about the 115 a little bit more. I'm just going to approach this from a little different angle. So first of all, good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. Firstly, thank you for the opportunity to serve you as financial advisor over the last several years on your bond transactions, most recently the pension obligation bond transaction. Secondly, whereas many of the municipalities in Arizona have issued bonds and then given those bond proceeds directly to PSPRS for investment, here at the city, we've decided to take an extra step. While assisting the city of Tucson as financial advisor, in interviewing their 115 trust managers, we interviewed Public Financial Management, PFM here, and right out of the box, they caught my attention. They caught my attention for their directness, their honesty, their market savvy, their willingness to ask challenging questions, which I think we even encountered in our own discussions with them, Mr. Massey. It was with a lot of extra work that staff and I have kind of proceeded with this path or through this path to come to this point in recommending PFM. Lastly, I would say that again, I'm very proud of the work that the financing team did and that staff did to achieve this financing, to complete this financing. And while I've said more times than any council member wanted to hear, there are no guarantees in this transaction. We all wanted to make sure that we did the absolute best to give this the best chance for success, as this is not over yet, and there are many years left to kind of see how much this transaction succeeds. So I am here more symbolically and more figuratively to pass the torch to PFM and to let council know that, again, we're very proud of this work, and it is not without a lot of consideration and internal dialogue that we've made this decision to recommend PFM to council.
Thank you, Mr. Vasquez, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, and staff. Thank you for the opportunity. It's nice to meet all of you. Annette Gaston, as Mr. Massey mentioned, and I both live in Arizona. I'm a native of Southern Arizona, born and raised, live in Tucson. Annette lives in Phoenix. And at PFM Asset Management, we've worked with public entities for over 40 years. We've built our firm around working with public entities, cities, counties, schools, and the like. And I have a presentation that I would like to pull up if someone can show me where I need to click here. This is my first test, I suppose. Okay, let's see. Thank you.
I'll try to help you. Was it preloaded? Was it preloaded?
It should have been. I sent it a couple days ago. Yeah.
You see it? What'd you send it to? Mike, is it preloaded? Do you have a? Do you have a?
I think we printed and passed out slides.
Yeah, you have slides.
I don't have that, but I know what's on it. So
was it? You can throw it in there if you have it.
Not in my car, I do. Yeah, but I emailed it over. Yep.
Sure. Yeah, I emailed it, but I didn't email it further. That's okay. We can go to the paper version.
Thank you. So first of all, I'll answer the question: what is a 115 trust? So a 115 trust is a way that money can be set aside after this issuance, which occurred, that can only be used to fund the PSPRS liability that the city has. However, you have flexibility on the timing of when you choose to transfer the money over to PSPRS. So the conversations we had with the city and discussions and the reasons that many of our clients adopt these 115 trusts is to offer a way to diversify their investment portfolio and their pension related investments away from everything being invested in one particular pool of funds, if you will. So in this case, PSPRS, this can offer value not only just because it's different investments and different ideas, but also the fact that there's flexibility of when you make those contributions. And most importantly, as a fiduciary of city funds, we work with the city and staff and the finance department to come up with a strategy that meets the needs of the city. Whereas the PSPRS organization and the statewide programs are focused on creating a plan that works for the state. However, there are differences in the unique risk and return objectives of the city can be incorporated into a strategy. You can have more flexibility, more stability, and some diversification. So that's what a 115 trust is. It's a section of the IRS code that allows for this adoption of the trust. And again, the trust can only be used for the sole purpose of contributing to the pension obligations. It's just flexible when that contribution is made. So with that, have a few slides on just an overview. We always think that our clients appreciate being able to put faces with the names and hearing some information about the firm. So you can see on slide 3, we give an overview of our firm, PFM Asset Management. We are a wholly owned subsidiary of U.S. Bank, and we've worked for 41 years serving public entities with, again, a focus on developing all of our systems for serving public entities and all of our business lines. You can see we have offices across the country, including Phoenix, and we have a strong presence in Arizona with over 33 cities, towns, and other entities as clients. On the next page, you can see the process that we have undertaken with staff to determine the optimal strategic portfolio design. So we reviewed lots of slides and market data, and to the point about the invasion, a lot of it was changing very quickly at the time as well. So we had some good conversations with the city about determining the appropriate mix of investments within this PSPRS dedicated 115 trust. So We looked at the liquidity needs, the asset allocation. We looked at risk return scenarios and came up with a portfolio that we proposed to the city. Now the step in the middle is the portfolio management, where if council passes this proposal, we will start purchasing securities on behalf of the city, and we will manage those investments on an ongoing basis. This is not a set it and forget it strategy. This is something that we will continuously review with the city. We will have quarterly meetings to review the performance of these investment reports and potentially any adjustments that need to be made with the strategy. And it's an iterative process that's continually validated, as we note below. We list our client list here as well. I'm not going to go through all of them, but it includes many cities, towns, counties, and other Arizona entities. We've worked in Arizona since 2002. And if you flip forward to slide 7, you can see the proposed portfolio. It's a balanced portfolio. You can see on the blue shaded rows, 70% of this portfolio is invested in equities made up of domestic equities, international, and emerging market equities. The fixed income portfolio makes up 30% of the total investment mix and includes core fixed income, investment grade corporate, emerging markets debt, and high yield. Now, some of those may stand out as looking risky. However, when you combine them into a portfolio in an optimal mix, what our goal is to achieve the highest level of return for a given level of risk, and understanding that the purpose of these funds is to perform in line with PSPRS. We took that into consideration when developing this portfolio with staff. You can see that the expected return of this portfolio over the next 5 years is 6%. Over the longer term is 7%. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what those returns are going to be. Our goal is to come up with a investment portfolio that is prudent, that meets the risk and return objectives of our clients, and in this case, the 70-30 portfolio was the optimal fit. So I have an appendix here with more data and numbers, but I don't think we need to go through that unless there are questions. Happy to answer any questions that any of you might have.
Questions?
I have a question. Thank you for joining us tonight. Last time we spoke with Mr. Vasquez, we were going to invest directly into PSPRS, and we were kind of hoping that I don't know what the rate right now of return is from PSPRS, Mr. Vasquez. Is it like a 9% right now? Is it steady? You don't know? Okay. So, and I was aware of what a 115 is, and I understand that it is a lot safer. PRS is kind of like higher risk, higher reward, but here it's low risk and much less, as you said, 4 or 6%.
That's correct. That's correct. And historically, I will say that the performance has been a lot stronger than that historically. However, our expectation going forward is that returns will be lower.
Okay.
For all investors.
What has been if you can remember, with the past 15 years, can you give me an average of percentage of returns? Is it a steady 5% or 7%?
So if you're looking at a portfolio that's a 70-30, historically with PFM, the historical return over the last 10 years, a guesstimate offhand, I don't have it in front of me, 12% per year approximately. The returns have been very strong, double what we're projecting going forward. Our returns have outperformed PSPRS with less risk historically. We don't know that that's going to be the case going forward. However, we do have the data that supports that historically.
Okay. And you will be informing us who our managers will be, or who is going to be informing us? Yes?
Yes, Annette and I will, and those are conversations that we have on an ongoing basis, and we update our clients on as we're making changes to the portfolio.
So when you give us the report to Mayor and Council, which is a quarterly report, you will show us how these investments were performed in the past months. Then is that
We will. That's correct.
yes?
Yes.
Okay. So okay, just to make sure. 12% per se is an average, and
Approximately. I'm happy to
I
send
know,
that information
I know.
if you'd like. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Councilman. Just one question. As far as just for curiosity, how much are the fees to manage the trust and the investment?
So the fees that PFM charges is 0.35%, so 35/100ths%. There are fees for custody services as well. I'm not sure exactly what those ended up being. I think staff could probably answer that. That's not with that. Those are not our fees. Our 0.35 is inclusive of everything we charge.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
And
Yes, go ahead.
yes, Mr. Mayor. Again, because of the volatile situation in the market, and that the market, unfortunately, this year has been trending in the wrong direction. What the proposed agreements that are presented to the council tonight for approval, what they will do is immediately transfer the proceeds from the pension sale, the $16 million, a little bit more than that, to PFM Asset Management, and they will park it into like a money market fund, and then over the next 7 months, they will, at 1/7 of 16 million at a time, in other words, 7 tranches, they'll go ahead and purchase the securities outlined in this portfolio. And the reason why, and this is a strategy that we developed with the assistance of Mr. Vasquez, this is like a dollar cost averaging, so that we're not going to invest in the market right away because the market is trending down. And so over the next 7 months, we don't know when down is going to be turning around and going back up. But at the first quarterly report that we get from PFM, maybe if the market is showing, more confidence, more signs of future growth, at that point, I think Mr. Schneider could recommend to the city to go ahead and not wait the full 7 months, but go ahead and invest right away. This way, by averaging out the purchases, basically we're going to get a broad average of what the market will be doing in the next 7 months.
That's correct.
Is that a good way of explaining it?
Yes.
So we're not getting into the market 100% right away. We're kind of dipping our foot in it and then stepping down the next step and so on. And the other thing that I would like to mention, Mayor, is if I can, to talk about the item D, which includes the investment policy, which is what Mr. Schneider talked about, which is the 70-20 or 70-30, excuse me. And it's a broad mix of diversified type securities. Again, that's a risk hedging, maybe waves of approach to the market. So we're not aggressively investing in growth, but this way we're also hopefully hedging our potential downsides, which unfortunately these last few months we've seen some downsides. So that's why the recommendation is 70-30 growth in fixed income as opposed to 100% growth. Especially in the first few years of investment, you don't want to lose your investment or even go negative at all. And so the other document that I emailed to council last week is an amendment 1 to the city's internal policy for how to fund our UAL, our liability with the PSPRS fund, and that is to take these 16 million and put it in this diversified portfolio, and I said it's aspirational, and then don't touch it for 5 years, let it grow. And the first budget year would be next year, and we have the recovery fund monies, just like we did for this year, to make our payments to PSPRS. So the first year should be doable. The next 4 years are going to be very challenging to to live up to that policy, because what you will be doing is paying the debt costs on the 16 million, which is 1.25, plus the PSPRS required contribution, which would be at least 3 million. So you're going to be paying, above 4 million. And if that can happen over the next 4 years beyond next year's budget, then for the next 10 years, you can start withdrawing the money. And that is transferring the money to pay, at least partially pay, or completely pay the required contribution from PSPRS. And so that's what attracted me to the 115, is it puts the council in control. And so, you're saying that you're going to, by not touching that money for the first 5 years, you're taking on some of the pain that the way that PSPRS would be billing us over the years wouldn't really hit until, say, 8, 9, 10 years from now. So you're basically making additional contributions now to save money and avoid future pain later. So we're moving up that pain a little bit, and I hope Mr. Dickey is listening, because he'll be the one guiding us through those budget years. And so we've been kind of aggressive this year on capital projects. And so during those 5, especially those 4 years after next year, it's going to be tight budget years. But the idea then is, Mr. Schneider is saying 6% growth at 5% growth after 5 years. The 16 million is above 20 million. And then it's going to be the next 10 years that you can withdraw that money. You can withdraw $2 million a year easily over that next 10 years, assuming that the corpus continues to grow and doesn't have negative growth. So that $2 million will be used to pay the $3 million or plus retirement contributions that we have to pay every year to the police and fire PSPRS funds. So, so that's I think the real import to the 115 trust. If council can maintain that, then you know that you're on track to pay off this debt without revenue enhancements, which nobody wants to talk about. But if, let's say, unforeseen conditions arise and there's a recession in the next 4 or 5 years, and you have to withdraw some of that money from the 115, it will be there at your discretion. But if you do that, and if you take the money out a little bit prematurely and send it on to PSPRS, which is the only place that you can take that money and send it to, then you kind of are on track to having a really difficult discussion with the voters in about 10 years from now that we're going to need enhanced revenues in order to pay off the PSPRS debt. That's why the policy says the next 5 years, you're going to do everything you can to leave the money in the trust, let it grow, and hopefully it's well above $20 million when the future council, maybe a future mayor, decide time to start withdrawing and smooth out that 10-year debt payment. That it's really going to be very challenging if we just leave it until 10 years from now. But this way, we're kind of, as I said, advancing, moving forward some of the pain, pay now to avoid some of the pain later. But that's the policy document that is attached to order number D. And also order number D includes the investment strategy guidelines to PFM asset management so that we go ahead and invest in the way that Mr. Schneider just outlined. So there's 2 orders, Mayor. The first order is the mechanical order of signing the agreement whereby we're going to get the $16 million over to PFM and they set it up into the, it's a currently existing trust. So what we're doing is we're approving a trust that already exists. It's a public trust. And then there's a document that makes us part of it. And then with item number D, it tells PFM Asset Management how to invest. You know, there's the 7 months of buy-in and the 70-30 blend and the internal policy document that this council is kind of giving direction to future councils, you know, starting next year and the year after. Don't touch it for 5 years.
And vote on both of them?
I mean, I think they both belong together. So one, I mean, it doesn't really matter. But I see there's a question.
Yes.
Mr. Massey, so after the 5-year, is that policy going to be revised or are we going to set new restrictions on those funds?
Well, the policy can always be revised. It's a policy that's adopted by council, so a future council can decide. That's what I'm saying is about unforeseen conditions arising. You can say, okay, we have to take money out that we didn't originally plan to take out. But no, if you can go 5 years, you've completed this policy. And then at that point, the decision as far as how much to take out and over what period of time, I didn't put that into this policy. That's just too far forward. We'll leave that to the future councils to decide. But yeah, at that point, they would make that policy to say how much are we going to withdraw and over what period of time.
Mayor, I forgot to ask Mr. Schneider a question. I'm seeing here we have in our portfolio, we have growth assets, income assets, and real return assets. From what I'm reading here, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the only return asset that will technically protect the city with the inflation, right?
Not the only, but the primary purpose of it is to do that. Yes, that's correct.
All right, thank you.
There we go. Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Guys have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
First order. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Schneider. Thank you all. Thank you. Oh, yes, and thank you.
We may not see him here next month if we don't have anything for him to do. So I don't know what he will do without us.
Okay, E, consideration possible action of order 2022-04-023, an order of the Council of the City of Nogales, Arizona, reappointing Mr. Jerry Smith to the Nogales Santa Cruz County Public Library Board.
So move, Mayor.
Second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? F, consideration possible action of order 2022-04-2-024, an order of the Council of the Nogales City of the City of Nogales, Arizona, authorizing the city manager to enter into a license agreement with Constructing Circles of Peace, Inc., to permit them to occupy the Nogales Housing Multipurpose Room located in 651 North Lake Ruth Street, Nogales, Arizona.
So move, Mayor.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. G, consideration possible action of order 2022-04-25, an order of the Council of the City of Nogales, Arizona, approving a sub-grantee agreement with the Arizona Department of Homeland Security for a Stone Garden grant in the amount of $644,404 in reimbursable overtime and mileage.
So move.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
H, consideration possible action of order 2022-04-026, an order of the council of the city of Nogales, Arizona, approving a sub-grantee agreement with the Arizona Department of Homeland Security for a Stone Garden grant in the amount of $436,000 in reimbursable equipment purchases.
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
Second discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye, consideration. Okay, aye. Consideration possible action of order 2022-04-027. An order of the council of the city of Nogales, Arizona, adopting a fair housing policy, making known its commitment to the principle of fair housing and describing actions in it shall undertake to affirmatively further fair housing.
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
J, consideration and possible action of order 2022-04-028, an order of the council of the city of Nogales, Arizona, approving intergovernmental agreement 22-008574-1 with the Arizona Department of Transportation for the use of federal funds to design and construct a multi-use path on State Route 82 from Morley Avenue to Royal Road.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? K, consideration and possible action of order 2022-04-029, an order of the council of the city of Nogales, Arizona, approving amendment number 1 to intergovernmental agreement with the Arizona Department of Transportation, ADOT, for the Baffert Drive to Nogales High School multi-use pathway project.
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
Discussion? Go ahead.
The same one that we've been working on
For
Yes. Yes. We've already invested some money in it. I don't know, Mr. Kissinger, can we ask Mr. Guerra? Yes.
Is prepared to talk on this.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Councilman Bojorquez. Yes, the consultant is currently working with Union Pacific in order to negotiate the location of this pathway on the side of the Union Pacific. Union Pacific has been a little bit difficult so far. They don't want any pedestrian or bicyclists close to their tracks. So what they are requesting is like fencing or relocating the road, the pathway to the other side or things like that. So we are currently having difficulties with them. So the project is 95% complete, but Union Pacific is not.
That's the design, right?
Yeah, the design.
Design is 95, not the project.
So they're saying they want fencing from Baffert all the way to Frank Reed?
At the beginning, they wanted fencing all the way, but I was able to propose just fencing in where Union Pacific tracks is very close to the future pathway. There are places where the tracks are on the other side of the wash, where it's very far away from Union Pacific tracks, and they accepted that. So that was reduced drastically, but still we are looking for alternatives.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Borges. Thank you very much. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Number 6, financial monthly report.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. What you have in front of you is the report for tonight. As we go through it, you will notice at the bottom of every table is the requested information the mayor had asked for last month, comparing last year at this time to this year at this time. So we'll kind of go through those as we go through each table. So February 22 financial report is what we're going to look at. Through February, we should be about 66.67% of our budget. For Table A, which is our general fund, for revenue, we have collected $19,671,129, which is 77% of the budget. And for the expenses, we have collected we have paid out $16,286,917, which is 58%. So that on Table A shows you those amounts. And then right underneath those amounts is where our comparison from last year to this year is. And you'll notice below those little tables, if there was any large differences, I kind of put in there what they were so you can see whether we had extra revenue or less revenue or maybe extra expense. So if you move on to Table B, that is our local sales tax. For February, we collected $939,468. It is $467,010 more than last year. And as of right now, well, into February, we are still $1,727,196 over last year. And our shared revenue is still above budget by $321,666. If you move on to Table C, that is the breakdown of the general fund expenditures per department. We still have a few that are above their 66.67%. And starting this month, we have really cut down on, well, not cut down, but we're watching these even a little bit more than we have been watching. I'm working with each director when it comes to anything that seems a little high. So we're working on these together, as is all departments. If you move on to Table D, for our HERF, we have collected oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. Am I off? My numbers are off on the report. So if you look at your table, it's correct. We have collected $1,665,235 in HERF and $198,384 in overweight fees. And for the expenses, we have paid out $1,706,512. And we have paid out in overweight fees for expenses $668,156. And my report's right, I just read the wrong paragraph. I thought it was right. And again, on the bottom are the comparison from last year to this year. Now, if you move on to Table E, which is our sewer fund, we have collected $2,342,522 in revenues, which is 62%, and we have paid out $1,584,695 in expenses. And at this point, our revenues are above our expenses by $757,000. And again, there's your comparison at the bottom. The next table is Table F, which is our water fund. For water fund, we have collected $2,531,166. It's 65%. And we have paid out $3,098,899, which is 60%. And again, the comparisons on the bottom. And then the final table is Table G, and that is our sanitation. We have collected $1,901,449, which is 62%. And we have paid out $1,539,803, which is 48%. And again, the comparisons on the bottom. Are there any questions on that part of the report? Okay, then the final 2 pages you have is the water and sewer delinquent report and the employee payouts. We currently have 6,131 active utility accounts. We have 416 delinquent accounts that are on contract. We have 4 fewer accounts than last year, and a total amount has gone down 21,000. We've had a few bigger ones pay off their contracts. We also have 125 delinquent accounts that are just the sewer sanitation that cannot be put on contracts, or they can't be collected upon or shut off. That one has increased. Some of that is due to the fact that our legal department has been helping us out, delivering nice little letters to some of our sewer people saying, please pay your bill or make a contract, or it will go further legally. So we have had quite a few come in and are setting up and paying accounts with us. If you look at the second page, those are the same 4 businesses that we seem to have some problems with. The first one has stepped it up and is doing much better. The second one will actually have their water shut off tomorrow. And you'll notice that they are delinquent on their liquor license for the city by over 2 years. And we have reached out to the legal department also on that one to figure out what we need to do. State-wise, they have their liquor license. It's with the city that they do not. And the third one, of course, we all know that situation. And the fourth one has gone to legal. They are trying to reach out to the owner, but they have not been able to contact the owner to serve her.
Contact has been made with her attorney.
Wonderful.
So,
because as of yesterday, there wasn't. So
right.
Good.
So we'll be discussing this further with the attorney.
Wonderful. Thank you. And then finally, for the employee payouts for the month of February, we had 3 employees, 2 from fire and 1 from administration. The fire totaled $23,109.65 from sick and vacation pay. And for administration, it was $208.84 for vacation hours. Are there any questions on that one?
No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, presentation, update on the future plans and status update, Gia Park.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. At this point, we are still waiting to hear from the state on the grant funding. We do have a meeting set up with them, with Mr. Kissinger on Tuesday to find out where we stand. The window was until February 28th, but most of the panel is working from home, so they haven't got together to send us any information. So that's where we are right now with that.
You have anything else, Mr. Kissinger?
No, sir, I'll be fine. No, Mr. Mayor, I'll probably have more information on Tuesday when the earliest time we can have the meeting with them to find out where they're at with the grant monies. And then we hopefully will have a better report for you next month, Mr. Mayor.
But they're not saying anything of what's holding it back or anything.
No, they're just saying we're still waiting to hear from the panel. That's what I've gotten in each response. I said, well, so am I.
Oh boy. Okay. Right,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, seguimos con el Techea Park. Okay, discussion items. Number 1, discussion, possible action to appoint a qualified elector of the City of Nogales to fill the vacant position on the City Council created by the resignation of a council member. Okay, before I continue with this, I'm going to read something to you, members of the council. before we make a motion, or before I make a motion. The person that I'm looking at and has accepted to be a council member with the state of Nogales, his name is Octavio Gradias Jr. He was born and raised and current resident of Nogales, Arizona, retired police lieutenant after 22.5 years of service with the Nogales Police Department, former member and chairman of the City of Nogales Employee Benefit Trust, current member of the City of Nogales Board of Adjustments, a graduate of the FBI National Academy 2007, same academy that our chief went to, same academy that Mr. Kissinger went to. Former board member of the Nogales, Arizona Peace Officer Standard and Training Board, current real estate agent, former member of the Santa Cruz County Real Estate Board, former athletic director with Boys and Girls Club of Santa Cruz County, and operations manager for a private security company based in Santa Cruz County. With that, I move to appoint Octavio Gradias Jr. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. Number 9, liquor license. Consideration. Yeah, there he is. Come over here. Ben, come over here, Octa. My friend. Yeah. Thank you very much for accepting.
Congratulations.
Yes. Okay. Octavio, you're going to have to deal with Letty and Mr. Massey on the swearing in. I don't know when they're going to do it. Probably tomorrow morning.
We have to get it typed up.
Yeah, once they type it up, they say.
Great.
Thank you for coming by. Yeah. Okay, number 9, liquor license. Consideration, possible action of liquor license 2022-4, approval of recommendation of an issuance of liquor license for Ms. Geraldi M. Flores for Los Agaves Distributors LLC, 775 East Terminal Road, Terminal Drive, Nogales, Arizona, 00407. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Now we go to Mayor and Council's report on current events. I'll start with myself. Okay. On March 2nd, I had the Sisterhood Agreement benefit briefing with city staff. March 3rd, hosted the Sisterhood Agreement press conference along with our Parks and Recreation Director, Renee Travers, Vice Mayor Lopez, and Councilman Diaz. We welcomed the visit from Alcalde Juan Jim, Nogales, Sonora, council members, and his staff. Thank you to our city staff and council members that were present. March 4th, attended a meeting and had a site visit with archaeologists on an excavation. Can't tell you where it is because I will have to kill you. That's true. Who was with me there? Do you know? Remember, Mr. Messi? Okay, March 8th, hosted a meeting with city staff for planning and annual cultural activities and events. March 9th, had an interview with King 9 and Fox News about border issues. March 11th, attended ADOT Bridge ribbon cutting ceremony, attended with stakeholders at luncheon. March 15th, had a meeting with Circles of Peace representatives to talk about several issues facing our community and community partnerships. March 16th, had an interview with a student from Jose Castro School, several educational and border topics. March 18th, had a meeting with representatives from the Arizona Autism Association. Had a staff meeting to address abatement and debilitated structures within our city. Attended the same date. Attended the first annual soccer youth league opening as a well-attended ceremony with over 23 teams of all ages presented. Thank you to Brian Hernandez for the invite and for your commitment to our youth. That was also attended by some members of the city council with me. Same evening, I attended the youth basketball hoops and movie night at the park recreation department. Big turnout and participation. Thank you to our Parks and Recreation Director and staff for hosting this tournament, and to Santa Cruz County Youth Coalition and Circles of Peace for the movie night activities. March 20th, I attended the World Down Syndrome Day at the movies. We all had such a great time watching the movie Sing 2, a musical I highly recommend to go see it. I mean, the animation is unbelievable. Thank you to Jack and Maria Skolnick from Love Connection for hosting the event. March 22nd, hosted a visit and held a business meeting with the Canadian Consul and CEO of the Arizona Canada Business Council and Port Authority. Addressed commercial trade, future investments, and partnerships between our countries. March 23rd, met with ROTC Rio Rico representative. I will be the guest speaker at Friday's military ball. March 25th, attended the inauguration of the fire department's safe house and community education event on Narcan and Naloxone. Thank you to Battalion Chief Chris Renteria and community partners for hosting this very informative event and for creating this safe station. And thank you very much, Chief. He's gone already, but I want to thank the Chief on this. March 26th, attended the 50th annual Little League opening ceremony. I attended the binational Phoenix Suns all-day basketball clinic. Quite a turnout of children from both sides of the border. Presidente Juan Jim and staff were also in attendance. A big thank you to the Phoenix Suns coaches and trainers, and again to our Parks and Recreation Department for the incredible work they did and for the long hours put into getting this project through. Totally impressed, and how they got it all done. I don't know, it was impressive. Did a great job, Renee, great job. March 29th, hosted over 40 students, teachers, and chaperones from North Point High School. That was a lot of fun. We discussed all kinds of issues facing our border community. March 31st, had 2 SEGO meetings with the administration chapter and the executive boards. That was my running list. Thank you.
That's
Okay.
it?
Yes, that's it. It was not a very busy month.
Okay, so I attended the IME Becas scholarships at the Consulado Mexicano. I also attended the SOS Safe Station Community Educational Event. Also the Binational Phoenix Suns Basketball Clinic, the Hermanamiento Conference, and we're still working with the Fiestas de Mayo event, which is going to be April the 30th. Mark your calendar. We'll be waiting for you there. That's all.
Que viva la fiesta.
Yeah.
Sigue la fiesta, ¿no? Okay. Okay, I also I got to be a speaker at the Sister City Press release conference here at City Hall on it was on the 3rd of March. Did the ribbon cutting on 189 project. I went to the ribbon cutting there. But one of the most important things that I did, I went to the naming dedication ceremony in which the Davis Mountain Community Resilience Center is named after retired Major George W. Biggs, who was an original Nogalian. He was born here. He was a Tuskegee Airman. He was commander at the BFW. He was World War II, Korea, not World War II, Korea, and Vietnam veteran. And I went to the renaming dedication ceremony at Davis Mountain Air Force Base, which was very great because Nogales was named on several occasions there at Davis Mountain. He was named. It's a whole complex, the Resiliency Center there, and the whole building was named after George Biggs, who is a Nogales native, and they gave a bio and the whole deal. So we got put on the map at Davis Mountain that day. So it was great, and that was on the 24th of March. And I just wanted to let you guys know that. I also attended the Phoenix Suns basketball clinic at the City Rec Center. I mean, Renee did an awesome job there, our recreation director. It was great. I went to the autism event Saturday here at the Achea Park, and also went to the flag exchange at Deaconcini Port of Entry for the flag exchange for the autism project they had there on Sunday. Monday was very interesting. I went out with Battalion Chief Urias, and he showed me some troubled areas around the city where it's pretty dangerous because fire season coming up and the drought and all that. So we will probably get a briefing from the chief later on, and I actually saw the dangers involved and how hard it will be to control a major fire. So it was very educational, and I learned a lot from that little ride I took with him. So it was very good, and I'm sure all of council is gonna know about it, and being that the fire season is gonna be upon us pretty quick, and hopefully we'll get a good monsoon. If we don't, we will work hard with the fire department to help them out and get some plans going to mitigate the fire season. And that's all I got. Thank you very much.
I also attended the Little League inaugural. Also attended the Phoenix Suns clinic with mayor and some of the council members. Also attended the ADOT Bridge ribbon cutting ceremony for the 189. Attended the soccer youth inaugural. I also attended the meeting with the mayor, with the Canadian Council and the Port Authority, which was very it was a tad intimidating what we talked about because it was a lot. But also I attended the firefighters safe house event, the autism event at the border and at the Achea Park. I was also with the mayor here in council chambers with the students with the North Point High School. And I had a very important meeting with Santa Cruz staff regarding erosion issues on some of the Nogales washes here in the city of Nogales. And that's.
Thank you. On March 9th, I attended an event at the Americana that was sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce. Chicanos por la Casa had a presentation on home ownership for low-income families. They also presented educational opportunities for the same and how these programs are made available to the public. At the same event, the South 32 project made a presentation on the future plans for a mining project, an investment of $1.7 billion that will be made on this project, which will run anywhere between 40 to 50 years. Their plans are to hire around 400 employees to start, and by 2027, it should be up to 600. Their main focus will be to hire residents for Santa Cruz County in various positions. So there's good opportunities in the near future for our community and our county. On March 19th, I attended the Little League ceremony. It was a great event and very exciting to see families and their children once again getting together to compete in a healthy environment. I also attended the Autism Flag Caravan, but I don't know if that was in Naples, so I don't know if that goes into the next month's report. So, it was very interesting. The people were very excited, because that made it happen. And the flag stopped here in Nogales, and from here it went to Sahuarita, Tucson, and then up to Phoenix. And that's all I have.
Just I won't repeat all these events that we all attend, but I do want to note and thank Chris Renteria and the Nogales Fire Department and all the staff for making our local fire stations safe stations, hubs for, of course, addiction resources, especially because it means a lot to the families of Nogales. Also, the Little League, it was interesting to see so many parents, hundreds of parents, and their children. I want to thank the entire organization, the committed parents. I just saw them practicing on our break out there in the park. It's nice they're using the Chat Park to practice. Thanking the coaches too, all volunteers and the umpires, and thank you, Mr. Maldonado, for doing a great job. And that's about it. We're all tired. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Future agenda items? Okay, let's move on to motion to adjourn. So moved.